This is Scott Spears, and today we're joined by an old pal of mine, Dean of the White House Press Corps, Helen Thomas, in a new segment we call From the Front Row As I See It, which we'll do from time to time whenever Helen's available. Helen, how are you?
Well, I'm former. I'm not really the dean, never was, but because that's not a real title, and I'm not there anymore, so I'm second-hand view.
Helen, how did that title come about, by the way? Who gave that to you?
Well, I guess it was kind of a general assumption because I had the first question at news conferences.
Well,
and I had been at the White House since 1961 with President Kennedy.
It's our loss that you aren't there anymore, and there'll never be another Helen Thomas. Helen,
thank God.
Helen, I wanted to get your feeling on a few things that have been going on in the news recently. First, the big political fight that turned into the raising of the debt ceiling, which they eventually did. What did you make of how these politicians acted?
Politics thought it was terrible. A denial of our country and its worth. I think that what was involved was national politics, anything to get Obama at any price.
Now,
I think the Republicans acted shamefully.
Now, for lay people who are listening to this, and you being a Washington insider for so many years, what exactly, in your eyes, did the Republicans use this to get Obama? How did they do that?
Well, they brought the shame of our country being downgraded. The buck stops here, and he will be blamed for all the losses of our integrity and everything else.
For those of us who are here in the Midwest, what does this credit downgrade really mean as far as a country goes? How does it affect how the rest of the world views us?
I think it does that we are no longer number one, that we're not the empire leader, and so forth. I think it is very, very bad. I don't think the average American had any other assumption except that we're on top. And some agency comes along filled with businessmen who care only about money, and they're the ones who are downgrading us. Well, we're not downgraded, only in their eyes. We're great, and we'll always be great.
If in our own eyes we're not number one, or in their eyes, where are we now?
I think we are in limbo. I think that the people who are fighting to get to the White House will do anything to reduce our fame and prominence and credibility. So I think they ought to really search their souls as to who are they trying to sell out except our own country.
Can we recover from this, Helen?
Of course. We always have. When we got back from the Great Depression, that was the worst.
Has it been this bad since the Great Depression?
No. I don't think the country has been that polarized before since World War II. In World War II, it had great unity. So the only real people who were on the other side were the conscientious objectors, and I believed in them because I think they truly had convictions. They cared enough not to go to war.
Helen, if I was a betting man and I were to ask somebody, just an opinion, kind of a handicapper, who was going to win the next presidential election, who would you say at this point, I'm sure a lot of things can happen, but who would you say at this point would take it?
Obama, because the Republicans have no one. They have no ideas. All they do is try to tear down. Have you heard anything concrete or positive about putting the country back together, raising our morale? No one. None of the candidates, and they are so many.
I want to run through...
And so awful.
Well, I want to run through the top three just to get your opinion. Christine O'Donnell.
Who?
O'Donnell.
I don't have really an opinion. I've wiped them all out. I think Obama's better than all of them. At least he cares.
What do you think he cares about?
Well, he certainly cares about himself, as all politicians do. But I think he would like to achieve unification of our country again, bringing us together. It sounds so familiar. I don't understand how far they'll go to defeat him, and how they not know that they're destroying our country, and faith and confidence in it.
Helen, why do the Republicans and people in general hate him so much?
I don't think they hate him so much, but I do think there is a racial barrier there.
Do you think in this country we'll ever overcome that?
Absolutely. I do think having a black president is a quantum jump.
Yeah,
quantum leap. Sure, eventually all this stuff, horror, will fade away.
Helen, we're approaching the 10-year anniversary of 9/11. First of all, where were you when that happened?
I was in my office in Washington, watching television, CNN.
And what did you think?
Well, I certainly didn't think it would have repercussions of a 10-year war. All the people in 9/11 died. Those, the culprits or whatever. So I think it's been horrifying. I mean, who's going to pay the price? Innocent people? And they did.
Do you think we're safer today than we were then from terrorism?
Yes, in a way. I don't think they're as viable, but I think the price is so high.
In an interview with National Geographic that's going to air at the end of this month, President Bush gave his thoughts on the day 9/11 happened, September 11th, 2011. He was in a classroom in Florida, and he said the reason he waited 12 minutes to do anything was because he didn't want to cause panic. Do you believe that?
For President Obama?
For Bush.
Oh, for Bush.
Yes.
Yes, I think he was unaware of the repercussions. I do think he probably didn't want to cause the panic, but at the same time he caused the horror of it all.
How did he do that, Helen?
He built up such a hostility. 9/11, everyone died who was involved. So what do? Carry on a war? Kill thousands and thousands upon thousands for 10 years, including our own people? What kind of stuff is that? Why would you do that? I mean, have you no sense of history or who's involved or who has to pay the price?
You know, Helen, I haven't talked to you since then, and it just came into my mind. What did you make of the capture of Osama bin Laden?
Well, I thought that he should have been captured, not killed.
And why is that?
Because we would have heard his story, and he would have been given his just resort, not just be shot by a Navy SEAL and killed, and leaving lots of questions. I think we should learn from our horrors.
I think a lot of people would agree with you on that. Last thing I want to touch on here before I let you go, Helen. We lost First Lady Betty Ford. What were your thoughts on Betty Ford?
I loved her. I thought that she was the most honest First Lady that ever lived in the White House. She called them as she saw them. She wasn't afraid to say that she had been attached to drugs and was an alcoholic. She was always sure that people would be forgiving, and she was right.
Helen, you go to a lot of parties and went to a lot of parties in Washington. Was there ever a personal experience with Betty Ford that we didn't see that you'd like to share?
Well, they wouldn't be at parties. I loved her because of her honesty, and she was so candid. When someone said, when she was interviewed, that what if your daughter had an affair? She was 18 years old. She said, I wouldn't be a bit surprised. When we used to tell her about President Ford falling over himself, being so awkward, she said, so what else is new? I mean, she was a true Midwestern great lady.
Classy
woman.
One
of the best.
Classy woman. Helen, it's always a pleasure to speak with you. You're just there are no words to describe your experience and your forthrightness, which I think we all appreciate. It's kind of refreshing.
Well, when you reach my age, you have to be honest. What else to do? Where else to go?
Well, Helen also recently celebrated a birthday. Happy belated birthday, Helen.
Thank you.
Take care and stay well.
Thank you.
Scott Spears with the former Dean of the White House Press Corps, Helen Thomas.